Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to do a non-spoiler review for the show Scavengers Reign. This is viewable on HBO's Max, and it's not a typical genre I tend to gravitate toward, but I was very intrigued after seeing a very mysterious and honestly anxiety-inducing trailer, and we flew through it when we did decide to start it. It is a kind of show, though, where it's so disturbing at times that I was like, woof, I might need a break, or I might need to look away. Or you're just kind of quietly sitting there wondering, like, oh my gosh, what the heck? And I loved that about this show. If you are somebody who tends to like sci-fi survival thrillers, then that might be enough to convince you to watch this show. But I do think that this had a lot of artistry involved with how the animation and even the way in which the animals, you could call them, represent certain themes and certain things that are going on internally with our characters. I think it was done masterfully and subtly and beautifully. So, like I said, this is a sci-fi survival thriller. The setup is that you follow a group of individuals who have crash landed on this mysterious planet. Most of them died. Most of the crew and the people that were on this ship have died from this crash landing, but some people were able to get on escape pods, and you are looking at various different people who are currently, after many, many, many weeks, are trying to survive on their own and hopefully someday reach somebody, put out a distress call that gets answered, and there's hopes of rescue, but you as the viewer are anticipating, I don't know that these people are ever going to be rescued. So you're looking at these different people who have crash landed, and they are all trying to survive on their own, and they all have their various different plot lines that you uncover that have to do with what they're experiencing now and what led them to this point. And you are hoping that they will all come together and be able to get back onto their ship called the Demeter. So a couple of the individuals have actually figured out a way to potentially get the Demeter to land on this planet, because it's currently like a satellite. It's not currently on the planet itself like the escape pods are. And if they can get it down, they might be able to get off. And so once they have tried to get the ship to come down, they are having to traverse from their places of safety to the ship. And it is when that occurs that everything starts to become very disturbing, very, like I said before, anxiety-inducing. I had to look away a lot of times. I was kind of horrified by so much of what was happening, but it really does feel like it was an extremely well-realized, different planet. And I think that's something that when we go into sci-fi where we're looking at somewhere else, somewhere that is not Earth, we want it to feel like it's not just barren. If there's life on this planet, what does that life look like? At the very least, it should be comparable to the complexity of life on our own planet, if not more so, depending on the amount of time that life has existed on this planet. Or if the people on that planet don't know much about life on this planet, everything should feel like a mystery, and you're constantly discovering how the ecosystem and different animals and plants, how everything is connected. And if you are somebody who likes to watch nature documentaries about animals, about plant life, if you're somebody who likes to read about those things, then that alone might be enough to get you to watch the show, because maybe you're not invested in the sci-fi components with the characters and their crash landing and all that stuff. Maybe you only just want to see this other planet and the life that has that the creators have given to this planet. It was honestly fascinating, and the idea of symbiosis is, I would say, probably where the terror comes into the picture. And symbiosis can be a good thing. It can also be a very bad thing. And how the plant life and the animals sort of manipulate things and come after humans or try to feed off of humans is terrifying. It is honestly, I wrote in my notes, terror, brutality, and then also beauty, because it feels plausible, it feels real, it feels like some of it feels inspired by things in our own on our own planet, but then enhanced and tweaked. And it feels like a thing that could exist, but also you're like, please no, that's a thing of my nightmares. I would not want that to exist. It's just fascinating to get to watch, but so scary because there's so many times where a character like stops to observe something and you're like, stop it, don't do it, just keep walking. But at the same time, there is beauty on this planet, and the brutality of nature itself, not even just talking about in this show, but in our own world. Nature is brutal. I mean, if you go and try to just walk around anywhere where it's primarily wildlife and not inhabited by people, you're probably going to die pretty quickly. You're going to die because you don't have resources, you don't know how anything works, you don't know that much about what plants can I eat, what plants can't I eat, is that animal going to try to hurt me, is that animal following me, and then another animal's going to follow me because of that, and you don't know. Even though we have all of this information at our disposal, most of us would not survive at all if we were thrown in the middle of the forest in Alaska or something like that. And seeing how these people have to navigate this brutal other planet, a lot of what happens is terrifying because it's the same things. It's like, can they eat that? Can they use that to their advantage? This idea they have to take shelter in this place, is this place actually worse than if they had just endured this storm that's blowing through? And how is the storm affecting this plant life and this animal life? Is that going to cause trouble here? And I just think that the way in which all of that is done is so edge of your seat. It's interesting because the animation style is not the most advanced, I'll say. It's not like arcane or anything like that. It doesn't look extremely realistic necessarily. It's very simple, but it's so colorful. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because despite how it looks just like a cartoon, it still somehow felt like I was actually watching something real, because there's so much life that has been breathed into everything in this story. And there are certain scenes that are really beautiful and oddly captivating, and you're trying to kind of look for symbolism between the things that you're seeing unfold and then also some of the ways in which the stories of the characters are being revealed to you. There's one particular character who has a lot of regret and a lot of bitterness, and how that is realized in how the symbiosis, I'll say, works alongside his plotline. I'm trying not to give reveals. I don't want to give anything away. But the idea that your regret and your bitterness and your anger at the world, at yourself, your denial, the way it can become monstrous, and the way that that is shown in the story, I think is exceptionally well done. There's a being that I believe is technically called Hollow. I don't think they ever call it that in the show, but that's how it's referred to. I saw somebody on Reddit refer to it as a hypno-chonk. I just feel like any show that has something called a hypno-chonk, or at least a Reddit user would call it a hypno-chonk, is a show worth watching. That's a perfect way to describe the thing also. And it's like kind of cute and also horribly terrifying at the same time, and monstrous, and ruins things. And I just think that it's so bizarre how the animation can be so colorful and so pretty, yet so simple and so basic, yet feels so alive and so real. I do want to highlight too just the general design of a lot of things. Their way, like the creativity, not just in the planet, but in the way that the characters are finding ways to survive. Their tech, their machinery, I think was really interesting and creative. The characters all have really distinct personalities too, and that's highlighted in how they choose to navigate the planet, which I really liked. There's also questions about humanity and what deserves to be seen as, not as a person, but as worthy of existence, you could say. And there's the idea of like, life is short, but what does that even mean to something that only has a certain amount of time? If that's all the time it has, then would it consider it short? Because if it lived its entire lifetime and it lived its lifetime in a satisfying, complete, whole way, then that's beautiful too. And it's just really well done. I think the score, the music for this is unbelievable. I went to school for music, and I played violin. And as a violinist, there were so many times I was listening to it and I'm like, oh, I want to try to learn this. It's just so beautiful and captivating. I couldn't get enough of the music. I kind of want to try to get the soundtrack to this because it's fantastic. I know a lot of shows have great music, but this one is just on another level. It's really, really beautiful. I am glad if it meant that if the animation had to be a little bit more simplistic so that they had room to do this beautiful score, I think that's the right decision, because how it all came together was great. I think the only, I guess you could say, negative for this is that while I enjoyed learning about the characters, I cared about them, I wanted them to survive, and some of them, oh my gosh, I hated. If you like a show where you have somebody you can hate, you'll hate somebody, and then somebody else will be introduced, and you're like, no, 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 I hate them more. I had a lot of emotions involved with the characters. I can't say that I loved anybody, not to the extent where I didn't like feel extremely connected to them the way I do in some other books or TV shows. And I'm usually very character driven. So it's not that the characters weren't well fleshed out or anything. I just didn't find that it was the focus necessarily of this. They were fleshed out enough to where I did care about their experiences, and I wanted them to live, and I wanted them all to have a happy life after everything they'd gone through. But except for the one where I'm like, you're just the worst. But I just didn't love anybody. So sometimes I was like, no. But then I wasn't that sad. Also, if I was worried about them, I still think they're well done. I just think if you're somebody who you want that deep character exploration, that's what the whole show is focused on. That's not quite what you're gonna get with this one. So it's maybe not one that I could say I enjoyed on the same level as Arcane, to mention another animated show, because the characters in that I love. I love those characters. I feel so strongly for those characters. Whereas in this, it wasn't quite to that level, but I still really, really, really liked the show. It's just the characters weren't the thing that really pulled me in, if that makes sense. If you've watched the show, I would love to know your thoughts. I would love to know, do you think there's going to be another season? Because it leaves off in a place where I could completely see it just being this miniseries and being done. But if they were to do more, I would probably tune in, because I would definitely be interested to see what they did next. But that's it for this non-spoiler review of Scavengers Reign. It was a little bit all over the place, I feel, because there's just so much to say about it, but yet kind of it's abstract in some ways, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint exact things. But I hope it was helpful at least a little bit if you haven't watched it yet. But anyway, let me know if you've seen it. If you have seen it, what are your thoughts? I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.